quite bad.
Can he continue?
No, he's unable to.
Damn it. Look at him lolling about there on the ground. One touch and he's off home to his beloved general. Next time, Dubert!
The first project of a film director must be, in a way, a masterpiece. A story with a powerful impact, not only just a nice story to watch, but to present what he is capable of in the way of storytelling with the help of images and moments during a film. And to be honest, that is what Ridley Scott did in its first feature film. The Duellists, a 1977 film that presents a story with a simple premise but a very important and powerful impact. A story about ego, about stubbornness, about competition. A story in which two soldiers from different divisions start a rivalry and they duel every time they have an opportunity. A rivalry started out of nothing but grew up to become a great motivation for each of them. In a way, every time when I start to watch this film, I feel something calm, something good about it, even if it's about a rivalry. Somehow the film catches you in its grip, it's making you feel the conflict, the characters' feelings. It's just a porter to a classic type of story. Probably it has something to do with the characters or the times presented in the film or the way those men act about the duels. Or probably it's about all of the above, because if you think about a story, two men who are always in constant conflict with each other, who are participating in duels every time they have a chance because of a misunderstanding combined with ego, stubbornness, you may say that, oh okay, I know this type of story, it will be easy to see the movie, it will be fun. Well, it's good to have fun watching the movie, but there are also many small details that make the Duelist much better than you may realize at the first viewing. And how did I realize that? Because the main heart of the film is the conflict between Dubert and Ferrot. The film is driven around their competition, and this is from where Ridley Scott started to present the story in a unique way. At the beginning of the film, it is presented to you that the conflict between Ferrot and Dubert started from some harsh words spoken during a moment of anger that started out of nowhere. But from that point onward, the film actually begins, and it is an interesting method to work with your characters to start from a conflict that guides them through their story. Because it is not all about their actions, it's about their feelings, their personalities as well, and how those actions affect them. To simplify it, Ridley Scott is using the motive of duel between the two of them to represent the duelists in a total antithetical way. On one side you have Dubert, who is a man of career, honorable, lovable, who just wants to have nothing to do with the conflict, but in a way he kinda enjoys it, at least at the beginning. And on the other side you have Ferrot, a powerful man willing to make what is necessary to save his honor, who is so devoted to beat Dubert that he starts to follow his footsteps not only through the historical conflict but also through the military ranks. And the representation is made, in my opinion, so perfect. The film begins with a duel in which Ferrot participates, and you can see him in his natural habit, you can see that he is good at dueling, and you can see that he likes to duel. After that you see Dubert, a loyal man who tries to avoid any type of conflict but who knows how to handle the sword if it is necessary. The antithesis between the two of them is making you want to watch the film to see where this rivalry goes and how it goes. It is a classic representation of a good guy and a bad guy put in the form of a duel. In an interesting way, the film presents this rivalry in a very evolutionary way, if I can say it like this. Somehow you can say that the rivalry grows with the characters at the same time. If I think so, I can say that the way the duels are presented is a way to present the way the characters grow too. It's pretty funny actually, because if you pay attention to the story, their first duel was like a childish rivalry taking place in the backyard of Ferrot's house, and then everything started to grow, going from an unsafe and savage environment like a basement surrounded by an audience, to an elegant place and elegant weapon like the duel with the pistols from the ruins of the castle. Basically what Scott did here was to show you the evolution of Ferrot and Dubert through the help of the duels. They started to grow in rank, they started to live different times, and so the duels started to evolve with them, they started to become more civilized. It's a nice touch to the story, to be honest. Like that, you can feel the growth of the characters more naturally, it's not a constant change for a conflict, and like that, it gives you the constant context of the characters. Besides Dubert and Ferrot, there is another character that is totally affected by the duels, and that is Dubert's lover, Laura. And I realized that only after I watched the film, because in a way she is caught in a conflict similar to Dubert, but is more personal, more emotional. As a matter of fact, Dubert's duels do not affect her directly, but they are making her take a decision important for her. Like Dubert, Laura is caught in this important decision to live with Dubert and be her mistress, or go to get married with another man. The duels start to make her feel like a third wheel in Dubert's life, so she leaves. Unfortunately, nothing is working well for her. So, you may understand Laura's character as a metaphor to what may happen to Dubert if he starts to be consumed by the situation that he's surrounded by, or just take her as an unlucky character that happened to be caught in all this situation. Honestly, I think it's more like the first option, and I like to think that she is a possible representation for what might happen to Dubert, a fact in a way that it happened later in the film, but not to Dubert but to Ferrot. Speaking of which, there is a moment where if you think that Dubert and Ferrot evolved alongside each other during the times they dueled, there is a moment where their fates are diverging totally. And the roads they have taken were so opposite and yet so characteristic to them that you can realize the fact that the duel that drives them became a more personal situation for Ferrot. Not that it wasn't until then, it was very personal, but for Dubert it's just a thing from the past that he can't escape and he sees it as a funny and serious situation at the same time. This thing has a powerful impact on their duel because if until that point the entire conflict was equal for one another, now the advantage is clearly for Dubert. And somehow Ridley Scott presents to you not only the moment but the way it started it. And you can see during the Russian winter scene when Dubert and Ferrot are going together on a scouting mission, and you can see that Ferrot is not a fan of the moment, but Dubert. He tries to be friendly, even to suggest a new thing for the duel, pistols, a thing that will happen later. But the entire moment when the advantage is Dubert's is when he wants to erase Ferrot's name from the traitors list. Let's face it, Dubert didn't own anything to Ferrot and he knew that he being condemned will mean nothing. But this little act of mercy is what differentiates us and presents them on opposite roads. Dubert grew up, he became a real man, a married man, a decorated soldier with a greater experience and understanding of conflict. On the other side, Ferrot remained that man who is in constant desire to fight, to duel, even if he had the same rank as Dubert. Somehow, no, not somehow. This important detail is definitive for their final duel because you see the experience on one side and the desire to win on the other. You see how both of them became after all those years of war and dueling. And the verdict from the final moments where Dubert lets Ferrot live knowing that he lost and that the conflict is finally dead is so satisfying for the viewer. The entire film you saw Dubert part of the story, you saw him dragged in the duel, you saw him evolve not wanting to face Ferrot. Every time you saw Ferrot, it was about the duel, it was about the conflict with Dubert. So the finale will be like a sweet vengeance for Dubert and a relatable ending for the story, and in a way very enjoyable for the viewer too, because the good guy will win and will win in an honorable and clean way. And with all the last events presented in the film and how the conflict ended, Dubert's control over the situation was amazing, to make it look like it's just a conversation and tend to apply the idea for a duel to end the feud. Dubert has shown a great maturity and a great strategic mind, giving him a more powerful characterization and a greater appreciation as the main character. I talked a lot about the characters and about how they are relating with each other that I totally forgot about the artistic part of the film, and that is the image, the soundtrack and the editing method. Those things are so easy to pass by when you have a nice story like the one from the Duellists. You don't care about them. But the image has a very nice touch of it. There are moments during the film where the story is represented like in a painting. True, mostly there are some shots filmed during in the exterior locations, but the interior ones have also a small reminiscent of a painting. The most obvious shot that can be interpreted as a painting and as a reference to a painting, the one with Napoleon on St. Helena, is the final shot where Ferrot reaches the peak of the hill and watches the new sunrise. The moment is so well made because it represents not only the new beginning for Ferrot, but also the grief and the unpleasure Ferrot feels regarding this new beginning. It is a reference to the France without Napoleon. I am not the one to say this because I did not direct the film, but it kinda feels like this. Probably that's why Ferrot is a Bonapartist in the story, to create this comparison at the end of the film. Anyway, the impression you are seeing of a painting in the shots is also presented during the interior scenes too. To be honest, it feels more like Ridley Scott took inspiration from a Stanley Kubrick film released earlier called Barry Lyndon due to the way of the light is used and how the characters are put into the light into the interior scenes. But that's just me probably, and even if it isn't me, I kinda love the way Ridley Scott is using the light to give you a nice and romantic atmosphere sometimes, other times to give you a calm or a dynamic feeling. So from the point of view of the image, the film sets perfectly the tone of the story and it's a pleasure for the eye to watch it. It's relaxing. It's a warm view for the eyes of the viewer. Regarding the way it is edited, I have to say that I am impressed. It balances perfectly the sensation of a calm moment to the impactful sensation of the dynamic of the duels. Through the way it is edited, Scott knows how to make the viewer feel relaxed in a moment and then in the next one to make him get up on his feet due to the tension and combat. He knows how to create suspense and to show you sad moments or happy moments. And given the fact that the film's runtime is 1.5 hours long, you don't feel like the time passes by. Due to this combination between calm and dynamism, the viewer is caught into the film's magic and will not realize that when the time passes. It is so important for a filmmaker to immerse you into its story without realizing the time passes by, and apparently, the Duellists succeeded in doing that perfectly. And with a soundtrack that guides you through the story, the film gives you that special feeling of period film, making you experience the story in a more relaxing way, but also it makes you feel all those special moments and duels more, how should I say, more personally, more directly. With every thought that comes through my mind, there are so many things that I would like to talk about regarding the Duellists. In a way, even if the film is based on a short story, the film has its own magic. Being separated in time periods and different locations is a great idea to show how a conflict grew over the years and allow you to see that evolution. And as the movie can play with the images and can show you to the viewer what is necessary without using the words, the important shots like the ending or certain moments during the duel, they make you be there with the characters. It makes you understand them even if you like them or not. To be honest, in the Duelist, you cannot hate one of them. Being Dubert or Ferro or even Laura, you can relate to them, you can see all those sides of the story, you can understand them. And that is what a good director has to make with their characters. If a director can make a viewer relate with a character, even a single character, then your story is good and enjoyable to the viewer. You won your audience, you won its interest. Overall, when I think of the Duelist and I start to watch it, even if I know what is going on, I get more and more attracted by its world and its characters. I know there is a simple story, but it doesn't matter, and with every screen view, I discover more and more details about the film. It makes me want to watch it. It's probably one of my favorite movies, or at least it's in my top 15. There is something though about this film. It can be understood and studied as a perfect film for a debut. It has a simple story, an interesting way to develop the characters and the relations between them, it has an interesting theme and is set in a beautiful era. You can learn a lot from this film if you are an aspiring filmmaker. Or if you are just a fan of films and you want to relax watching a good movie, The Duelist is a nice try if you haven't seen it. It's a nice comeback if you've seen it before actually, which means no matter the circumstances, The Duelist is a film that deserves to be watched.